Right, so good morning.
Morning.
Good morning, everybody. Wonderful to see you. And may I and my wife add our congratulations for yesterday's event, a very wonderful event, a wonderful day, because it was several parts, right? So I think, I hope you feel from that, this is really a good kind of opening of doors and a good kind of breakthrough to a new level, and lots of possibilities coming out of this. You can feel, I think, through this also, as people around our region, around the world are feeling, it's a kind of changing time. A lot of things are possible that we might have felt were perhaps a bit difficult in the past. So, we should capitalize on this and change along with the time ourselves. So thank you. I heard even the MCs, who did a tremendous job, came in very late in the day. Right? Thanks to Kim and also Michael for that. And but if you saw the kind of front of stage and also behind the scenes and on the side kind of help and support from our family members, it was quite substantial. So really, we don't want to take too much credit for it, but I'm a little bit of an outsider here, so I can say that. I can say, well done, and it was obvious that you made it possible, really, with this. But that cooperation also is significant. We had so much help from the Thai family as well, bringing people there, and that was a worthwhile investment, I think, because that made valuable connections and really helped. So very good approach, very hopeful, and already people there talking about, the next blessing in the north of Sweden and this kind of thing. So, that's good, right? It's going to happen. So thank you. And right. So today is a chance to just share something. It feels just like last week that I was up here, but working it out is actually quite a few months. So surprising how time goes, isn't it? My topic today is, here you go, discover the power of love. That's my title, right? Thinking about the power of love itself. And I want to take one particular angle, which I hope you find helpful, and ties in a little bit with some of the things we were saying yesterday as well. But at my wife's urging, I'm going to just share a little brief bit about my testimony, right? When you asked first generation what their testimony was, this almost always meant, how did you meet the movement, or how did you join? Right? So, young people, those stories, I don't know if you've asked your kind of elders those stories, or even your parents those stories. Have you asked those questions? Of course, they like to talk about it. This will be, my previous generation. They like to talk about the war largely. That was, as they get older, they go on war stories, right? This is what I did. But for us, now 36 years of marriage, then our stories, I don't know, around the fire at night, we'll just be sharing kind of old fundraising stories and and how we joined. As if anybody would be interested, really. But there you go. So, but I only want to say this because it does have the quality of being a testimony to God and the way things can and do work, which doesn't change, actually. That's the point. Right? We may feel things were possible then, but they're not possible now. So I'll try and keep it really short. And it starts out with me. You have to imagine me, a little kind of beardy and long hair and, straggly student, 20 years old. I'm in Bristol I'm studying architecture, just gone through second year of a 3-year course, and it's all going well, actually, on course to become, eventually an architect. You have to do a second course, etc. But so that was fine, but I was already having kind of thoughts myself that, I'm missing out, I'm missing something essential in life. And a lot that I'm dealing with in myself and with my friendships and things is false. It's not satisfying. I want to know really what is life about. And I was getting strong feelings to either give up my studies and become a monk, not a Buddhist monk in this case, but I had a flash of orange in front of my face at that moment. But no, although later I wouldn't have minded that so much. Or follow my other kind of teenage passion, which was church organs. And I'd done some help for somebody who made organs, so I was thinking maybe I'd become an organ builder. Organ builder or monk. Okay. Crazy, right? But it was somewhere preparing me that life actually was going to change. I was on course, and it seemed like, doing the study route and the career route, but God had something else in mind for me. And it was at the end of the second year, just as we moved into some student accommodation. We were sharing a house. It all gets very complicated when you do that. So much energy goes into that. Anyway, we got the house, I got the room. I got a piano, second hand, got it stuck halfway up the stairs. Nobody could move it. Anyway, this was life. And I remember sitting on a windowsill, open window, sunny morning, just like this, and consciously praying, God, where is the wise person today? Please show me. I want to find a really wise person, because I felt there's such an absence of that. I didn't see anybody with anything wise to say. So I was, and I wasn't looking for books, I was looking for a person. Anyway, next few days, holiday had started, and like a kind of arrogant intellectual student, I sat down and I was going to spend the summer holiday writing a novel. I thought I'll write a novel. Like, you can just do that, right? So I got the typewriter out, the days of typewriters, folks. It was sat on the table there, got the paper in. I got to page 2. Yeah. And I got the title sorted out. I got the page 2. And really, like, this voice spoke to me. And it just said, go down into the center of town. And I kind of thought, okay, what's this about? And I remember just kind of following. I felt I should follow this voice. And I went out of the front door. I remember turning back and seeing I'd left the front door open, but I thought, oh, forget it, that's all right. I just have to go. So I started conversing. It wasn't something I was normally doing, this, but it didn't seem strange either. And I was saying, well, where should I go? And the answer came back, to the church. Okay, to the church. So I thought, I know what that means. I used to go here sometimes. This is the cathedral in Bristol. Bristol is west of England, about 100 miles from London. And that's where I was studying. So I thought, oh, that's where I meant to go, to the cathedral, because I used to go in there sometimes and pray a little, just enjoy the gloom and the melancholy. I loved that, right? And so if the organ was playing, that would be even better. So I got to the doors, those big double doors, and as I got there, one door was open and like a cold wind was coming out. And the message it gave me was, no, that's not it. This is not it. So I didn't go in. And I thought, okay, where should I go then? And then this voice said to me again, to the church. So I said, I know what it means, right? There's another church. There's a church over here. It goes across the green here. And I'd gone in there sometimes just to have a little kind of, melancholy prayer. And I got right to the doors again, these double doors. And as I got there, these doors opened. And coming towards me, I was standing like this, a bit straggly, was a bridal party, bride and groom and bridesmaids and photographers flashing and everything. They were coming straight towards me. I was probably the last person they wanted to see, to be honest, but I shouldn't have been there. And I felt, actually, this is not the place. This is not the place I meant to be. I felt it was kind of very, this is kind of materialistic thing going on, and this isn't it. So I was starting to get a bit puzzled, and I was thinking, come on, David, you've been listening to this voice, you spacing out, you're not doing what you set out to do, you're just walking around the town now, let's go home. So I thought I'd have to go home, and as soon as I got past here about this point, I heard a voice from behind me, and this was a young French lady. She was together with an Austrian sister, and she said something to me about, excuse me, we have a lecture or something about the problems of society. A little line, was being spun to me. Normally, I would never talk to anybody on the street. I was an extremely shy person, as I am now. You would have guessed that, but it never changed really. I mean, I can make myself do these things, but that's part of it. But I would never talk with anybody on the street. Wasn't interested in that, but more out of shyness than out of lack of interest. And let alone would I do what I did next. I went with this French girl, who I didn't know, obviously. She said, we have to get a bus. So I got on a bus with her. I didn't know what this was, really. Got on the bus, but one thing I knew is as soon as I saw her, it didn't matter what she said, this was why I came out this morning. That's what I knew. This is why I came out. And I saw in her something like, this was the kind of person I wanted to find, because she didn't have all the false stuff that I had in myself, And I just felt this is what God wanted to show me. That was my kind of, might not have put it in that language at that time, but that was, the result. So I went with her on the bus. We couldn't talk much. We went to a little closed-down shop front, smaller than this one, and went in. There was just one room with no furniture, just a blue carpet, and I sat cross-legged in front of a blackboard, and I was given a 1.5-hour lecture by a Swiss sister, who's also now living in Italy, a wonderful sister, and she gave me this lecture on divine principle from beginning to end, short version, and at the end of that 1.5 hours, I just thought, wow, this is amazing. This is what I've been looking for. And not only that, but in a way, what lies behind this? That's what I'm looking for, right? So if you'd asked me to repeat that, what I heard, I couldn't have done it. But I just knew, this was what it's all about. So I saw what person became my spiritual mother and this lecturer talking with each other, kind of whispering, shall we, shan't we, shall we, What about me? I was thinking, wonder what are they going to ask me, And they said, they came across and said, well, we have a workshop starting tonight. Would you like to come? A 3-day workshop. That was in Cleeve House. It was not so far away, if anybody knows Cleeve House in the UK. And they were sure that, I was probably going to say no, but I just said yes. Yeah, like the most obvious thing. Like, is it possible to go kind of via my flat so I can get a toothbrush? That was it. And then I was off. I really never returned. Of course, I returned to tidy up things and clean, take care of my affairs and this kind of thing. But essentially, I never looked back. I went, at that time, there were rolling workshops. You went to the 3-day workshop, you could stay on for the 7-day workshop. And the 21-day workshop was 3 7-day workshops, back to back. So you just kind of stayed. And, that was what I went through. It was amazing. And I never wanted to turn back. And I just, again, because I was shy, one day I suppose in the middle of the 21-day workshop, because I'd seen other people obviously joining this movement, and I thought, well, I had to pluck up courage to stop my main lecturer, and I did so on the stairs, and just ask, is it possible that I could join the movement? Expecting him to say no, actually, we don't need people like you. This is what I was expecting, to be honest. But he said exactly the right thing for me. He said, it's just a commitment of heart. And he walked off. No pressure, no anything, right? I was left kind of standing there, Brilliant, brilliant tactic. For me, it was exactly right tactic. He says, it's just a commitment of heart. And I thought, wow, great. Then I'll do it, right? So that was it. That was my joining experience, okay. So in this, you can see evidence, certainly, of one principle that you're very aware of. It's there in Divine Principle and Father's speeches all the time. Talks about, there in creation and in restoration, there are two aspects to this, right? There's God's responsibility and mankind's responsibility, right? This is part of what makes us uniquely human. As we know, we have this responsibility to be co-creators with God, even in creating our life, our character, our personality, building our place in the world and fulfilling three blessings. We have this kind of role to actively, consciously participate out of our free will. And 95% is God's responsibility, we say, and 5% is human beings' responsibility, which, is then nuanced by the fact that we have to exercise that 5% with 100% kind of investment and sincerity. So it's not just a small amount, it's a lot for us, but compared to our Creator God, it's very small. Right? And God takes care of everything, even our life, our environment, our circumstances, our parents, or so many things. Is God working behind the scenes to help me and take care of that 95%, but I have to do my part. Did you notice that later in life, towards the end, our true Father changed these numbers? Anybody spot that? Said 97% responsibility and our 3% responsibility. I was wondering why. That's curious. Why? But I think it's more to emphasize that don't forget that so much is God's work, actually. God is there always, ready to work and behind the scenes and preparing in advance for us many circumstances and situations. So our effort is even less, right? But don't forget that. So sometimes it's quite hard for us when we're given responsibility, and I remember I talked about that last time, right? Yeah, got a mixed response, right? Initially, right? Right? But, responsibility is very closely linked with love, and that's more our topic today. But when we get given some responsibility, we may feel, or even prior to that, we may feel, I'm not the person who can do this, I'm not the one, I'm the, this is a common theme through those stories in the Bible where people have been called, right, by God. God knowing their heart, knowing them better maybe than they know themselves, or knowing their potential. They may not feel they're the one who can do it, but God encourages them and does so. And one Bible verse that expresses this more than any other for me, it's very beautiful, little Bible verse. Almost you can miss it, right? But it's there in the first book of Samuel. If you go to Samuel chapter 10, this is the story of where the last of the judges, that is Samuel, crowns Saul as the first king of Israel. Remember that part in the Divine Principle? It's mentioned, this is the change from the period of judges to the period of kings and the united kingdom of Israel. And just at the end of that little story, it says this: as Saul turned to leave Samuel, God gave him a new heart. Isn't that beautiful? That means for this mission that he had taken on, and surely he had some trepidation and some kind of feeling like, is this real? We've never had kings before, but now I'm being made the king. How am I going to do this? Are people going to accept this? What is, all kinds of thoughts must have been there, the heaviness, the weight of this responsibility. But as he turned to leave, he's just had the ceremony and he's turned, what happens? God gave him a new heart. That's God's 97%, right? Even can give you a new heart to do what you need to do, right? So work that out, That's amazing. That means even if I think maybe I'm not the person or the one who can do X, Y, or Z, or maybe, the idea of tribal messiahship is too big for me, it's too difficult, whatever we're struggling with, God can give us the quality or the heart to do even those things. God really looks at our hearts, right? In the New Testament, there's the beautiful so-called Beatitudes in the Sermon on the Mount. If you go to Matthew chapter 5, it's all there. It's a kind of summary of some of the key sayings of Jesus, probably very close to what he actually said. We have no guarantee, but the nature of the kind of writing is like that. These key sayings of Jesus, probably not said all at one time, but there you go. And in the Beatitudes, you get this, blessed are they, this kind of formula. Why certain people, because of certain kind of attitude or behavior, are going to be blessed by God and what their reward is going to be for that kind of lifestyle, if you like. And here's number 6, actually. 6 on the list is, blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Wow. This also you can almost miss, right? When you read it, because it just sounds like something Jesus would say, doesn't it, right? And you think, oh yes, that's one of Jesus' sayings, right? But think about it, for they shall see God. Now, can you see God? Can you see God in the spiritual world when you go there? No, apparently no, right? So, what's that about then? Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. I think myself, it's my own reading of this, is given the audience which Jesus was speaking to, Jewish audience, they're not so concerned about the afterlife or have such a clear concept about the afterlife. So I don't think it's talking about like when you die you will meet God. I don't think that myself, although it's open to that interpretation certainly, and probably is mostly read that way, to be honest. But blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. I think it's talking about here and now. That's my feeling. It means if your heart is pure, you will see God around you. You will see God in all kinds of situations. You will see God in people, in your brothers and sisters. Whereas if your heart is not pure, you won't see that. Right? So which of those situations is the one to be blessed? Right? It's a very blessed thing, actually, if you can see God. Because, wow, that changes your life, right? That gives you so much to live for, right? But if you go around, interacting with people and dealing with situations, but you don't see God in any of that, how miserable, right? How tiring is everything, right? So, that's a very key little statement there. And I think this is one reason behind our true Father's kind of amazing power and ability. It was his pure heart. Often people would ask him things like, Father, don't you have a secretary? He doesn't have a secretary. He doesn't have an office. Did you see him sitting long hours in an office? Right? That's a judgment on me for a start, right? Escape to the office and then, doing all this work, right? In inverted commas. But Father never did that, right? And the most you saw was at an international meeting or something, he would produce from his pocket this tiny little notebook, that he could hold just like that. And in it he would have just a list, of like a list of 6 points or 8 points or something, and he would refer to those because he'd just written down, right? But Otherwise, he didn't need those things. And his explanation was because of purity of heart, actually. Its memory is tremendously good. If your heart is pure, your memory is good. Don't worry if your memory is not. So there are other reasons why your memory may not be 100%, right? So anyway, you know what I mean. It's that clarity of mind, and that that shone through everything. That's why even if one had no benefit of a translator when you were hearing Father speak, it was still a fascinating watch, right? You could watch for hours because just the way that he kind of moved and connected, and his expressions and everything is just delightful. There's one little story which I want to share with you, which is about this aspect of Father, his purity of heart. And this goes back to the time, remember, after Danbury, Father went to Danbury in America, as in this wrongly imprisoned for tax evasion charges, but saw it as an opportunity to pay some price for the sake of America, and never had resentment. And then when he emerged from this 13-month prison sentence, there was quite a movement had grown up about, in support of religious freedom, especially led by black American ministers, right, who sympathized with Father's situation and caught it immediately. And following that, around 6,000 American ministers, mostly black evangelical type ministers, but not exclusively, they went to Korea for a series of workshops and pilgrimages to go around Korea. Do you remember that time, many of you? And this is a picture from one of those visits where the ministers went to the Rock of Tears in Busan, where Father used to pray. At that time, there's no church building. There's just this rather very simple hut made of mud and ration boxes, and that's where Father lived and worked out of initially, starting his mission, and would go to pray on this Rock of Tears. And ministers going there, when they arrived there, having heard this story, they would just cry. They would weep. They would feel the Spirit. And they tap into this, what is really quite recent history of Father's early life. And that was a tremendous experience for them. And we had a videotape, which I haven't seen for years. I lost track of this, but hopefully these surface sometime in a new format. And there was a film made of one of the kind of banquets at the end of one of these pilgrimages, because this one was one of the only one or few that Father himself went to meet the ministers. Right? Didn't go to every one, but at this banquet, kind of farewell banquet, Father comes and he's standing there at the podium, and Dr. Bohi Park is next to him translating, trying to catch every word. And there are ministers sat around, having a nice banquet dinner, around round tables. And I'm sure when Father looks at them, he sees all kinds of different levels of, spiritual accomplishment amongst these people. But his thought is not to, comment or say anything. And what is fascinating to me is what Father does say to these ministers. Right? So we look at True Father, Sun Myung Moon, as like the kind of carrying on the work of Jesus as a returning Christ, this role. And for sure these ministers have heard that, and they're kind of dealing with this kind of question. Could this, is this what his mission is? Is he this kind of person? And Father's first words are, I am an ordinary man, and I don't know much. That's what he says to them. I am an ordinary man, and I don't know much. We might contest that, right? But, that's what he wanted to say, and put everybody at their ease, through that. So clever, so, heartful, actually, towards them. Probably sensing everything that they had in their minds and thinking this is the best way, right, to break through that. I'm an ordinary man and I don't know much. And you could feel the room go, But then Father says something. He says, But this I do know. I felt and experienced the love of God in every cell of my body. Right? That's his experience. That was his life. Could everybody in the room say that? Had I really had that kind of experience? You can call it that, but not in the way that he was speaking really from his own experience of God. And that meant suddenly the room had to really respect this person, right? So like, get rid of everything. I don't have any position, any importance. It's not anything to me. But I know God, right? I had this experience of God. That's what we need. That's the open to the person who is pure in heart. Here's a little quotation from As a Peace-Loving Global Citizen, this beautiful little book. I come to love it more and more, right? Personally, I don't think it's an autobiography. It's the wrong title, right? I think it's life lessons, because some chapters don't mention what Father is doing at all. They're just little life lessons. And as such, it's very precious, because there's no doctrine in there, there's no kind of churchy things, it's just lessons. And here, Father says, in talking about family and marriage and family, says, God's will is to bring about a world in which love is made real. Love is made real. And the family is the place where God's love overflows. Wow, so beautiful. This morning, did anybody get to hear True Mother from Japan? Anybody listen in? It's always, I recommend, when these live broadcasts come, if you can, listen in. It was quite a reasonable hour this morning, about 7 o'clock or something. So sometimes it's the middle of the night. She was speaking in Saitama, which is just north of Tokyo, or northern Tokyo. It's Saitama. And 20,000 people, right, in this stadium. 20,000 people. It was full, very clearly, all in white shirts, all, bowing when they're asked to bow, and, amazing. And True Mother spoke very clearly and profoundly about the need to bring God into the center of everything in the world. Right? And she rekindled certain ideas about the unity of, or the kind of unification through the peace road and tunnel between Korea and Japan, and really encouraged Japanese members. It was very beautiful and very wonderful. And that is somewhere describing this place, which is also represented by the family, where God's love is the very center and God's love overflows. And in UK recently, as a fellow monarchy, you might appreciate, we had a royal wedding. Anybody hear about that? So we watched that, right? And this was Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. It was kind of interesting for people because somewhere the ceremony wasn't as rigid or straight, kind of tight English character as before. It had to change its character a little bit because this is, person of mixed race origin from America and marrying into the royal family. Oh, interesting, right? So even our royal family changing its kind of concepts a little bit, and the minister there was, if you get a hold of this, is worth listening to this sermon. It must be on the internet, I'm sure. Reverend Michael Curry, black American minister, gave this talk. Did anybody catch it? Yeah, there's a good sermon for you, right? So, very powerful sermon about love and very core Christian message, taking more than his allotted time. This is unthinkable in Church of England circles, I was a Church of England choir boy when I was a little boy, and I used to be at the door when people were leaving, and all the adults would be commenting. The only thing they'd comment on was the length of the sermon. So I said, it's more than 20 minutes today, wasn't it? Yeah, more than 20 minutes. Can't believe it, right? Ooh, nothing about the content. Just the length, you see. So anyway, that's me trying to get off the hook from giving too long a sermon here. But why I mention this, in this sermon, and this, actually even as a result of this, the Church of England had a meeting, they had a council meeting, and they decided from now they were going to allow more sermons like this. What strange thinking, isn't it? I thought about it, it's like they weren't allowed before. What? No spirit-filled sermons, please. We don't like them. Actually, Church of England, we don't like them. Not too. I used to cruelly, I shouldn't say this, but I used to characterize it by saying, have faith but not too much. This is the kind of, slogan. It's a bit unfair because they do tremendous work, but some of the the services are a little bit like that. Don't get too enthusiastic, Oh, no clapping, please. No. This kind of thing. You don't do that. Certain things you don't do, right? So anyway, but I like that too. I like back to my melancholy again. It's lovely, right? And the choir and the kind of sexless voices, which kind of little boys. It's very beautiful, right? Anyway, this minister, Reverend Michael Curry, of the Episcopalian Church in America, which is the Church of England in America, he quoted Martin Luther King Jr., right? And here's a little bit more of the actual quote that he used. And Dr. King said, "We must discover the power of love, the redemptive power of love. And when we discover that, we will be able to make of this old world a new world. We will be able to make men better. Love is the only way." It's a beautiful expression of the need of love, set within the Christian context or era, whereby redemptive love, to kind of put right things that are wrong, but we feel how true parents, are taking that even one step further. This should be very natural. It should be the way in which we, live a principled life. Love is at the center, and it has to be a true, genuine kind of love. So, this I also mentioned yesterday in the Blue Room. Is the Blue Room, you call it?
Yes.
Yeah, lovely place. True love is, genuine love, real love, unconditional love. We know True Father spoke more about true love than any other living person, I'm sure. Also, what's the kind of opposite of that? False love looks like love, but isn't really love. Right? It has some kind of imitation to it. It's some conditions attached to that love. Of course, this is something we can look at in much greater detail. I won't do today, but an interesting author, we use this or recommend this in our Blessed Family department, is the work of Greg Bear, who's an American, actually with a Mormon background, and he wrote a series of books on real love. That's his term. But when you read it, you realize he's just talking about true love, right? It's the same thing. It's very, very helpful because it's almost more practical, than some of the guidance available to us. It really brings it down to earth. Like, if you're talking about unconditional love, what does that mean to be unconditional? That means, as a parent, if you just praise your child when they are good, or they do a good piece of work, or they got a good mark at school, or they're well behaved, but when they're not any of those things, you don't praise them and you show your displeasure or you're angry with them, that is not true love, because it's conditional. It's like, I love you, conditional on your behavior, right? If you do well, I love you. The message then for a child is, if I didn't do well, I'm not loved, actually. That's the kind of message. Wow, this is actually quite judgmental stuff in a way, in a good way, because even he says things like, if someone makes you angry, then what you're experiencing or what is happening in that experience, this person makes you angry, then you do not have real love for that person. You don't have unconditional love because you're more concerned about your feeling, right? So that's what conditionality means. And so he traces this back down even to if you're irritated or disappointed in someone, that's also the same. It's just lower down the hierarchy. Anger's at the top maybe, and down is like being irritated. And I know I get irritated by people. But then you have to think, why? This person irritates me. This is about my feeling. I wish you didn't irritate me. Right? But that's not the point. Of course, he goes sensibly into certain things like, this is not saying everything is okay or you just let people do what they want. No, we should be there to correct people where necessary, or especially children. Our children, we have to correct them where necessary, but do it with love. It's not about how you feel about it. It's, are they doing it right or wrong? Is it good for them or not, what they're doing? So, it's very insightful in that way. True love, genuine love, real love is unconditional love. Then what is false love? False love is imitation love or conditional love. And he gives these kind of definitions, which is, it's just a taster, really, of this morning. Conditional or imitation or false love is, I care how you make me feel. So this sentence is kind of a way to just take stock yourself, Am I exercising true unconditional love at this moment or not? Am I concerned about how this, interaction with somebody makes me feel? Then my heart is not right, actually. They may well be wrong as well, right? But that's not the point, right? The point is my love unconditional, true love, or not at that moment? And what about this kind of aspect? Another author that I think is quite helpful in this respect, maybe surprisingly so, but doesn't focus on it so detailed way, is Eckhart Tolle. I don't know if you come across him as a writer. Very, very insightful into the mind-body problem, really. It sounds almost like, is this Buddhism, or what is it? But he has wonderful analyses of Christian stories and parables and the words of Jesus from a more kind of an internal point of view than is normally done, to show the kind of workings of it in terms of the ego. And he's talking here about the experience of people's love, this imitation love, and why we can point out to the kind of experience of romantic love which people have commonly in our society. What they experience of love isn't really true love. It's an imitation of the real thing. And he speaks about it this way. He says, what is commonly called falling in love is in most cases an intensification of egoic or ego-centered, self-centered wanting and needing. It comes across in all the rock songs, doesn't it? From the 50s onwards, especially, Maybe they're not gone on to other slightly variations nowadays. But, it used to be, baby, I want you, baby, I need you. Right? What's all this about? Without thinking, does she actually like to be talked about this way? Right? It's very much in there, isn't it? But, is that love, actually? No, it's kind of, people fall in love with that experience, because it feels good, like imitation things do feel good, It gives you a false high, actually. But you fall in love with that process, and that process is not going to last. It's not built on anything strong and a good foundation. So it's not going to be a lasting relationship if that's the relationship. So he says, you become addicted to another person, or rather to your image of that person, because when people meet in the kind of dating game, they're putting forward their best self, They're putting forward a false self, because I know this is more attractive. than the real me. I know the real me, you know. It's not so nice. But I don't want you to know that, right? So, you know, naturally, we put on our best face. We do it anyway, you know. That's kind of tendency, isn't it? But, you know, how nice it is when you meet somebody who's just genuine. They're not putting on any kind of falseness, right? So, you know, this is what I was struggling with when I met the movement. And this is, you know, I found it in other people, but I wasn't at that stage sure that I could become that kind of person, you know. It's going to take a lot of work, right? So here he is, Eckhart Tolle is saying, it has nothing to do with true love, which contains no wanting whatsoever, right? Interesting. So this is another source kind of confirming this. And you'll be surprised how, you know, when all these kind of ideas and this approach come together, this can change the way people do things and the way, because people are looking for genuine happiness. And when they can find that, you know, they won't look for anything else. So true genuine love, though, is caring about the happiness of another person unconditionally. I'm caring about that person's happiness. If I'm doing that, then, wow, you know, my love is true love. That's genuine. That's real love. And then, as you know, the more you love a person, the more beautiful they become. This is, you know, the beautiful thing between husband and wife who love each other with a genuine love. Let's say that for all the 2,075 couples, right? Your spouse becomes more beautiful as they become older because you love them more, actually. And it's a beautiful thing. I always like the phrase, true love is always surprising. Have you noticed that? It has that quality, you know. If someone acts towards you with genuine love, unconditional love, it's always a bit surprising. Wow, you did that for me? I didn't expect that. Right? This kind of feeling. No matter, it never gets tired, it never gets old, right? It still is kind of surprising, right? I didn't expect that, right? Who said that? It was me, actually. Yeah, sorry. Okay, but Father said, what is an ideal family? Some might say, it's a family whose members all trust each other. Others might say, it's a family whose members know each other well. These descriptions fall short, though, Father says. An ideal family is a family whose members are connected with an inseparable bond of heart. It's a family whose members feel each other's pain as their own, or even more deeply than their own pain. That's the unconditional quality, right? Hence they willingly sacrifice themselves to carry the other's burden. Such a family can be called an ideal family. Even when we use that phrase, ideal family, we can think, oh, this is some kind of mythical family where everything goes right for them. You know, where does this family exist? You know? But that's not the point. That's not what Father is saying an ideal family is. It's not a family where everything goes right, that has no problems or no difficulties. So it's more, you know, how does that family deal with those difficulties? Or how do they help each other through the painful moments and the things which don't go right? Because from Father's quotation here, you know, he's clearly acknowledging, you know, that's going to be very often the road for humanity, isn't it? Right? And for us and for our blessed families, yes, you know. But what is the quality that makes it ideal? It's when we feel each other's pain as our own, and even more deeply than our own. And that is, of course, you know, that's the parent's heart, isn't it, towards the child, where you feel, you know, I'd rather be suffering than my child suffering. If I can alleviate that somehow, I'll do it, whatever the cost. So we willingly sacrifice ourselves to carry the other's burden. Such a family can be called a family. Such a family is a place where true love is exercised, and God's love, this true love, this same quality of love, is overflowing. And that's the kind of society which we want to create. Amen? Amen. Our Jew. Thank you. Please join me in a word of prayer. Our loving Heavenly Parent, we thank you. We can share some time today. It feels very good to drink in your words and to think about especially love itself when it's coming just the day after such great investment by brothers and sisters here to make a successful event in collaboration with the Buddhist community and other international contacts. So, Father, it's just a start of the many great things which we will see happen here in Sweden. And we pray, Father, for your guidance and your help and your blessing in everything we strive to do together, centered on a good purpose that will multiply in goodness and present it to other people in a way which they also get drawn in, because they find their hunger is satisfied. They find their emptiness is filled. They find that their fears no longer exist, and they can live and dwell with you in eternal love and in a bond of love which is lasting and is deep and more profound and true than anything they've experienced. We thank you, Heavenly Parent, for this day, and we want to offer our sincere hearts to you in worship, in prayer, in thanksgiving, and do so on behalf of brothers and sisters here in our names, David and Kyung Johanna of a Blessed Central Family. Adieu. Thank you. God bless you.